Ray, thanks for spending some more time with me. It's great to see you again. Always enjoy chatting with you and getting your perspective. I know you work with and talk with a lot of sellers, and one of the topics that we wanted to hit on is something that has grown in prominence over the last couple of years for obvious reasons. But really, it's leveraging video as a part of the sales process, and not just one particular part, but throughout. And that's what I really want to dive in on. I've used video probably more than most, but also very cognizant that there's some ways that I could probably leverage it better. So I'd love to get your thoughts. How can sales professionals best utilize video as an active medium throughout the process of selling?
Yeah, well, thanks for teeing that up, and thanks for having me on again, Carson. I also enjoy and learn a lot from these conversations, so appreciate the chance to talk about this. And this is an area we've been spending a lot of time focusing on in our sales training programs at Sales Readiness Group. One particular we've embedded in a program we call Selling to Key Executives, which, no surprise to you, but selling higher, being more strategic, how do we get to that C-suite is on the top of mind, I think, for a lot of sellers. And it's something we've heard our entire careers. I'm sure you're the same boat, right? Well, you got to get to that C-suite. It's like, well, how do we do that? And what do we say when we get there? So when we peel it back and look at video, it can be such a successful tool that, frankly, I think most sellers are only scratching the surface. And what I mean by that is they're using it for outbound prospecting. And somebody said, oh, you should embed videos in your LinkedIn messages, or you should use a tool like Vidyard to send, outbound, which is fantastic. But the truth is, we all get those cold videos as well. And most of the time, it's kind of like a little bit of an eye roll, right? I don't know this person. What are they pitching? Comes out of the blue. What's really interesting is it's starting to evolve where if you've warmed up that contact, so maybe they've shown a little bit of response, maybe they've engaged in some way, or you've hit them on social, you followed them, they at least know who you are. The likelihood of them responding to that video goes way up. Yeah. So we know that doing that video takes more effort, and we can't be sending 80 of those every day. It just there's labor involved. So let's be strategic about how we use it. And then where I'd like to go with this is, what do we do after the first meeting? How can we use that, throughout the sales process, as you mentioned?
It's a really good call out, Ray. I mean, you used the word likelihood, and that's kind of the very way that I govern my own process and with my team, right? It's all about probability. You couldn't have said it better. That's been kind of a mantra for years, as we've got to get into to drive meaningful transformation, meaningful change, meaningful partnerships. We've got to develop those relationships in multiple lines of business, multiple rooms of the house, as it were. And you're right. I mean, I think video, like anything, is a valid medium by which we can leverage for outreach. But with all of these mediums, there's ways to use it effectively. There's ways to use it not as effectively. So I would agree with you. Like, if somebody reaches out, I don't know them from Adam, and here I've got this video, the chances of me opening that, reviewing that, acting because of it are low. But I would agree with you, as in there are ways that I think about times that I've used video effectively over the last few years. First off, when the pandemic began, and I was actually sending video messages to certain key executives and just checking in, just leaving a message, and wanted to make sure that it was a human element. There was a lot going on, so picking up the phone and calling everybody wasn't necessarily feasible, but I didn't, the email element wasn't as personal. So I leveraged video and some voice messages in the early days just to leave a more personal touch and just let them know we were there, if there were resources that we could bring to bear, if there was anything that we could do, whatever it was, just to have a conversation. Furthermore, I've leveraged it before in newsletters. And so typically what I will try to do is personalize the newsletter by organization. And so it may be a personalized video specifically to the team with which we liaise at that organization. And so it gives me that opportunity to speak directly to them, their situation, their scenario, something maybe that we've worked on previously. That way, you give yourself that higher probability of success because, one, it stands out. It's different than just sending an email and cluttering their inbox. But second, it's that way to really make that personal touch. And I think as long as we are controlling those variables of it, it can really help. The last thing I would say is, years ago, when I was looking for new opportunities, I actually leveraged a video resume. I think video gives you the capability to really stand out from everybody else and what they're doing. With that comes great responsibility, because there's automation tools now with LinkedIn where you can message a lot of people. Obviously you've got video, you've got the capability to engage at a high frequency, but with that comes the great responsibility of keeping the personal element.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think doing that extra work and not using it and treating it just like another email in your sequence, right? I don't think, I think that's going to dilute it. I think, there is labor associated with it. I think we should, this is the sniper rifle, right? This is the point solution to say, I want to get to Carson. I want to make this extremely relevant. And if I spend time doing some research, tailoring my message, keeping it short and getting it out there, my likelihood then of engagement goes way up. And I've seen some statistics. I think the response or reply rate will be like 26% higher, right? If you engage with that video. And what that number means, I just gave a lecture at University of Washington to the sales certificate program there, and I was talking, classic sales math, right? What is your prospecting funnel? How many touches? How many responses? How many meetings? How many opportunities? How are you going to hit your number? And when we're going through that math, I said, if your funnel looks like this and you're amazed that you have to do 10,000 touches, right, to get to your number, well, what can you do to narrow the funnel, right? How can you improve those odds? And if you increase your reply or response rate by 25% at the top, that changes everything. You don't have to work as hard. So, let's do those things that are going to make that possible. And I think what's really important, and you mentioned it in terms of going after certain parts of the organization or making it relevant to that group, is let's figure out what's going to resonate. And when we go through in our training, we talk about this. How do you engage? Well, it's this ramp process, right? You're going to research, you're going to get access, you're going to meet with the executive, then you're going to put a proposal together. Well, in each of those stages, we can start using video in a creative way. And the research needs to then be thinking about, well, what one or two things are on Carson's mind that I can embed in that video in the first 10 seconds that's going to get your intent, your attention. So if it's, hey, Carson, I was doing some research. I just wanted to share how we helped a client similar to yours increase the productivity on their sales team. I'd love to chat with you more about that. And if that's in a sincere video and you have some connection with me, you're probably a little bit intrigued. And I'll go one further on that initial step is if you're doing that while you're either reviewing your LinkedIn, so the video tools are great, right? You get the little window in the corner, but you can go, or I'm reviewing your annual report or a strategic document or some piece of content that says, wow, this person actually did some homework for me, right? Again, now we've really taken that to the next level and we've made it relevant. So when you're researching, you need to be looking for those insights, or you need to be calling attention to some specific trigger or a referral. So even better, say, hey, Carson, John said I should reach out to you because he thought I could help you. You're probably going to take the moment to do that. So we'll go through those other areas because I think there's some really interesting things as you go through the meeting, the proposal process to use it as well. But I think that's how you kind of up the game on just getting that initial meeting with somebody.
Yeah, definitely want to dive into those further elements of the process, because I think really, Ray, it comes down to the consistency of execution. So all sellers, if you're watching this today, my thought is like, let's think about what would be some of the reasons that I would push back on using video. Maybe I don't feel like I'm comfortable using that medium. Maybe I see the value in using it, use it a couple times, don't get a response. I'm like, yeah, it's not worth the time. I think the key element too is I always try to look for ways to scale effectively. So yeah, I mean, knowing you can't take shortcuts on certain elements of the process. You can't take shortcuts on the research that you're doing, the understanding that you have of what is top of mind and what matters to your target client. But you can look for ways to do these things more effectively at scale. And so there's a lot of things that I'll do that are one-to-one, and then a lot of things that I'll do that are one-to-many. And I think it's okay to sometimes tinker with your process and say, like, I'm going to run a diversified portfolio of these different ways of engaging with my audience. So I'm going to leverage my social platforms, my LinkedIn, my Twitter, whatever may have you. I'm going to leverage a blog. I'm going to leverage video. That video can live on all of these different platforms. And so I can engage one to the masses, and I can also use it for one-to-one engagement. And so I think the key is to really set the foundation for the different mediums, the different tools you want to be using. And then what does that process look like? Execute the process, be consistent in execution. Don't just stop doing certain things, because you're not going to really get a full glimpse of how effective these tools like video can be unless you're willing to run the play for months at a time. And will you tweak it along the way? Absolutely. I mean, you'll see, like you said, you're going to want to make sure that those first 10 seconds, I mean, those are critical seconds. You've got to say something that gets their attention. And it's not about like what you want to do or what you'd love to do. It's got to be, hey, this is something that is top of mind in your organization. Your teams or somebody that works for you has given me this feedback, and here we go. That's what's going to resonate. So how else? Yeah, I'm intrigued by, how do we best leverage this throughout the ramp process, Ray?
Yeah. So, and I think you're spot on in terms of a lot of people have tried video. They send out 50 videos. They don't get a great response, and they're like, well, that doesn't work. It's too much effort. And I think maybe we're not thinking about it right. So to your point, it needs to be a multi-channel, and we need to do some, comparison or some testing. But I, again, think it needs to be very focused, and it needs to be more of a strategic tool that we pull out. We're really trying to penetrate a specific account or get to a particular stakeholder, and we're doing multiple things to get there. And then we're making it, extremely relevant for that individual. So on outbound, and, you've got 60 seconds, right? Max. So what can you say in 45 to 60 seconds? What can you say in that first 10 or 15 seconds, as we said, to grab their attention? And then something I think people also miss in that first part of the process is when we send that video in the email, we better have a line or two that gives them a compelling reason to watch the video. Hey, Carson, I outlined 3 steps that I think might be valuable for you on improving your team, and I wanted to call attention to that. Here's the video where I call that out, because otherwise just an embedded video in an email is like, I don't know what this is, and I've got a lot of better things to do, right, than watch a bunch of spam videos that come in. So yeah, I think we really need to think about that as we're doing our research, making it relevant. And then, if we get that meeting going through that process, so we've done our research, we've used it hopefully to get access, and then the areas of moving that deal forward where we can embed video. And for example, especially with executives, we know their time's busy. Maybe we've booked that 15 minutes or that 30 minutes. Well, sending a video out to that executive or the team in advance and saying, really excited about our meeting coming up on Tuesday. We talked about covering these 3 items. I've outlined them, and I wanted to see if you had any other input. So now I'm making that connection. And to your point, we can't go walk the factory floor or walk the halls anymore and say hello to people, but we're branding ourselves, we're creating that relationship, and we're also saying we've got our act together, right? That we're really excited, and we're going to pay attention to their time, we're going to be respectful of their time, and we're going to try to accomplish these things. And if they have a different idea, so everybody has probably heard, oh, we should send the agenda and an objective in advance. Maybe we do it, maybe we don't. Send that video and outline that, and I think you go to the top of the list. So, before a meeting, it can be really valuable. And I'll just finish that step. But after the meeting, coming back and saying, wow, Carson, that was such a fantastic meeting. We covered these 3 items. I took away these action items. You said you were going to go look at your budget and your plans for the year. And then we're going to meet in 2 weeks, and I'm going to send you a request. So again, now I've got that personal connection and recap in addition to an email, but I've created a closer relationship. So I think in and around the meeting, it can be a really successful tool as well.
Yeah, you nailed it. I think the one question for anybody watching, sellers, do you agree that video could make you more successful at multiple steps of the process? Because I think at the end of the day, like, we've got to sell ourselves on leveraging video, making the choice to leverage video as a part of the process. Does it make us more effective? Yes, it absolutely can. Now, there's a lot of different variables at play, And I think what I'm hearing from you, Ray, is, as we go out and we execute at different levels of the process, let's look at where does video best fit? Where can I best leverage a personalized video at each step of the process? Where could it make me more effective? How can I run this over time? And I think if anything, over the last couple of years, the regular video presence that we've had to maintain, I think we've all realized, like, if I'm going to send a video to an executive, I don't have to be like perfectly camera ready. I can be myself. I can be my authentic self. And I think that's what it's all about. I would agree. I mean, it adds a personal human element to some of these tasks that can become very commonplace, like the initial outreach, like the follow-up, like the lead into the important meeting, and like the explanation of the proposal, or even something that shows a process. There's a lot of ways that we can leverage video. So my challenge to viewers today would be, look at where could this very valuable medium fit in what you do.
Yeah, and I'd love to hear the comments and other feedback, because again, I think people are being creative, they're thinking about it differently. And the other area that it comes up for us is actually in a proposal process, right? You've done your work, you were able to meet with them, they agreed that they wanted to review your proposal. And one of the things we talk about a lot in our Selling to Key Executives program is, the buyer drivers, right? The triggers for executives are different depending on their role, right?
Yeah.
You got to understand that persona. You're selling to the CFO, the COO, the chief security officer, right? They may all be on the decision team, and they may have a vote, but they have very different care abouts for sure. And the interesting thing about video is we can tailor that proposal to the buying committee based on their persona or based on what they care about. So I may be talking about features and functionality if it's a tech buyer, but I may be talking about the ROI and the business case if it's the CFO, or I may be talking about efficiency if it's the chief operating officer. So I'm sending the proposal and saying, hey, I wanted to highlight, slide 6 because it talks about how we're going to drive efficiency into the organization, or the chief marketing officer. This is how you can increase or improve your image, right, if you're able to embed this solution. So I've got different ways that I can take the same proposal, but tailor it to the buying committee. And we know that the typical business to business transaction has more stakeholders than ever, right? At 6 to 8 every year, it goes up. There are more people that have a stake in the game. And if we're not paying attention to their vote, or at least understanding, I think we're going to miss. So if we're able to deliver that proposal with a personal message that makes it about them, I think we have a better chance, right, of getting their vote on the committee, or moving that forward. And then even in a negotiation, right, if we're working with procurement, or we have a couple of items we need to resolve, our negotiation process is, well, you should set the stage for a successful negotiation. If there are a couple of things you need to get out on the table, talk about it, and make sure you highlight, well, here's the issue, and here's some of the creative options, or here's some of the things I'd like to talk about. Well, that could still be in a 30-second video. I know we have this meeting to talk about the contract. We want to resolve this, this, and this. Please let me know if you have anything else, so you don't get blindsided. And again, it just sets the stage for a better meeting overall.
And as much as I'm told that we can embed tone and inflection in text messages or emails, what better way to do it than a personal message? My last question for you today, Ray, is, yep, what's the most creative way that you've seen somebody leverage video? What I think is amazing is, one time, and this is probably commonplace, and maybe I'm just a nerd about this, but I was scrolling through my LinkedIn feed, and somebody had done a video where a LinkedIn post was their background, and then they were coming out of it and talking, and it caught my attention. I mean, I got to admit, I clicked it immediately because I'm like, what is this? This is something new. It stood out. Now, granted, there are a lot of variables that we control. We've got to think about, how can this best stand out? How can it best get attention quickly, then keep attention and move things forward in the relationship. So I'd love to hear, what's the most creative way you've ever seen video leveraged as part of the sales process?
Sure. I think anytime we can embed video with some real content that's relevant to that individual. Like I said, you can have your little window in the corner while you're scrolling over their LinkedIn and said, hey, I noticed that you were at this company. We have some mutual colleagues or something. That's nice. You can do that on their annual report. Hey, this particular area, I see that you're increasing in Asia Pac. or you're growing your footprint and we just helped a client, so you can highlight that or call attention. One of the most creative ways I saw, and this was in a video example, the person had mystery shopped or gone to this website, e-commerce site, and had some issues with it, and was showing how they were clicking through, running into this problem in the video, and then called attention to how they could help solve that problem for them. And it's like, wow, okay, so that's real life, that's relevant, and you obviously got my attention if you're pointing out some things on my site. So, I think we can do it that way. The last piece I'll mention, just to finish this whole ramp process, right? Research, access, meet, propose, and then the follow up and the thank you. We know we should send more thank you notes. Maybe we send a handwritten, but now where do you send it? How do you get it to them? But a personalized thank you video saying, Carson, I'm so excited about this deal we're working on and the fact that we're going to be moving forward in this partnership. Here are the steps we outlined. We're going to kick it off in 2 weeks, and I really look forward to working with you and your team. Again, we personalize that thank you much more than, hey, thanks for the business and let's do the contract. But we've created that attention because we know that the long-term relationship starts after the deal signed, right? And we need to keep building that client relationship. So yeah, I think there are different ways to build it in. And I'll just share, I saw a stat from Proposify. They researched a lot of thousands and thousands of proposals. They said if you embed video in your proposal at that point of the process, your win rates go up 41%, or at least those that they looked at. So to me, again, not only have I narrowed the funnel at the top, I don't have to work as hard, but my close rate, if my close rate can go up and even a fraction of that, now I don't have to put as many in the top. So anything I can do to help narrow that funnel and improve my win rates, I'm going to take a look at. And I would encourage people and your audience to give it a try.
It's always how to win my heart is give me some statistics about how I can improve, and I'm all in. It's amazing too what you can do with backgrounds now. I mean, you could literally make a video for an executive with whom you share an alma mater, right? And have that be your background. That's going to get their attention. Just think about those little things. It takes a few seconds to incorporate that in, but it makes you all the more effective. Ray, thanks so much. Really appreciate the opportunity to chat as always, and we'll see you next time.
Great. Thank you, Carson.
Thank you.